I was 22 the night everything went wrong. It was supposed to be another one of Nick's legendary Halloween parties. Nick was my best friend, a Halloween fanatic. Every year, while his parents flew to New York for their own party, he turned his house into something straight out of a horror film. Fake corpses, fog machines, flashing lights. He went all out. That night the place was packed. Loud music, costumed people everywhere, and the smell of cheap alcohol and weed filling the air. But what started as a night of laughter turned into something I'll never forget. Me, Nick, and a few friends, Joey, Q, and Vinny, were upstairs in his room smoking, when two loud bangs echoed from downstairs. We all froze. At first we thought it was fireworks, but then came the screaming. Not playful screams, real ones. Panicked, terrified. Nick ran to the door and peeked into the hallway. He went pale. He shut the door quietly, locked it, and whispered, "They've got guns. Hide." No one questioned him. We killed the lights. Joey and Nick jumped into the closet. I slid under the bed with Q, and Vinny climbed into a storage trunk. Then the music downstairs stopped. A man's voice yelled, "Everyone shut up!" A girl screamed. Then came another bang. Silence followed. Heavy boots stomped up the stairs. They stopped right outside the bedroom door. The doorknob rattled. Then 3 gunshots shattered the lock. The door creaked open. Through the gap under the bed, I saw black boots, ripped jeans. The man walked to the closet. Nick's muffled voice shook. "Please, don't shoot. I'll give you money, anything." The man said nothing, just ordered him downstairs. We stayed frozen. For 20 agonizing minutes, there were muffled voices, then the sound of the front door slamming. Nick ran back upstairs, trembling. "They're gone." When we went down, I'll never unsee it. Jen and Robbie, 2 of our friends, lay lifeless, blood pooling around their heads. Later, Nick told us there were 4 intruders, wearing coats, gloves, fedoras, and Guy Fawkes masks. They demanded $100,000. When Nick couldn't give it, they forced everyone to empty their wallets into a sack, and they shot anyone who resisted. Police never found them. Nick spiraled after that night, drinking, drugs, eventually heroin. He told me once, tears in his eyes, that he still saw their faces. Because when they pulled the masks off, one of them was someone he knew. Nick died of an overdose the next summer. It was my first Halloween living alone. My parents had helped me buy a small 1-floor house on a quiet corner street. That night, I was watching horror movies in the living room when, around 11 p.m., there was a knock at the door. No one knocks that late on Halloween. Trick-or-treating had ended hours ago. I figured it was some teenagers pulling a prank, so I ignored it. Then it happened again, louder. "Get lost," I shouted. Silence. When I finally opened the door, no one was there. I stepped outside, checked the porch, the bushes, nothing. Back inside, I double-locked the door, annoyed but not scared, until the pounding started again. This time, it wasn't knocking. It was violent, desperate pounding. It shook the whole door. I yelled again, but whoever it was didn't stop. Then it went silent. Minutes passed. I turned off the TV and tried to ignore it, but sleep wouldn't come. I eventually dozed off, until a noise jolted me awake. It was 2 a.m., and the knocking was back, but not from the front door, from my bedroom door. My heart dropped. Someone was inside. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my phone, my hands shaking too much to dial. The doorknob rattled. They were trying to get in. I had no weapon, no plan, just one desperate idea. I plugged my phone into my speaker system, opened YouTube, searched .45 gunshot sound effect, cranked the volume to max, and hit play. Bang! It echoed through the whole house. Then I yelled, "That was a warning shot. The next one's in your head." Footsteps thundered across the wood floor, rushing to the front door. Then silence. When I opened my bedroom door, no one was there. The front door stood wide open. I slammed it shut, called the police, and spent the rest of the night awake, gripping a kitchen knife. They never found who it was. I've never been big on Halloween. By 14, I was too old for trick-or-treating and too young for parties. That year, my mom went out with my little sister, leaving me home to hand out candy. I didn't mind. I had horror movies playing on TV, snacks, and the phone in case a friend called. Around 7 p.m., the house phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Silence. Just faint breathing. Then a click. I laughed it off as a prank. But a few minutes later, the phone rang again. Same number. Same silence. Same breathing. "All right, Steve, I know it's you," I said. Click. I tried to shake it off, but unease started crawling up my spine. Hours passed. The trick-or-treaters slowed down. The house grew quiet. I was watching Friday the 13th when it rang again. This time, the voice spoke, a low, distorted whisper. "I'll be paying you a visit tonight." I hung up, heart racing, told myself it was nothing. 30 minutes later, the power went out. Everything. Lights, TV, the hum of the fridge, dead silent. Then pounding at the front door. I screamed. The laughter that followed froze my blood. It sounded familiar. I opened the door ready to yell, and there stood Steve, my best friend, laughing hysterically. "Dude, you nearly pissed yourself," he said. I shoved him. "You idiot. Don't ever do that again." But when I asked him to repeat that deep voice, he looked confused. What voice? He swore he'd only made the heavy breathing sounds, never spoke. I didn't believe him until we checked the fuse box outside. The cover was open. Every wire had been cut clean through. The police traced the calls later to a payphone, outside a bar 10 minutes away. To this day, I don't know who else was out there that night. When I was younger, my friends and I went trick-or-treating every year. One Halloween, as we walked down the street, we noticed a man standing perfectly still by a lamppost. He wore a dark coat, gloves, and a white mask. In his hand was an old lantern that flickered in the wind. As we passed, he turned his head, slowly, to follow us with his eyes. We laughed it off at first, probably just an adult trying to scare kids. But every few houses he'd reappear, down the road, on the corner, across the street, always facing us. At one point, he vanished completely, and we thought we'd lost him. But as we turned from another porch with our candy, there he was, standing in the middle of the street, completely still. We ran back to the house we'd just left and banged on the door. The homeowners came out, but the man was already walking away. Slow, steady steps into the dark. Later that night, an adult friend of my parents told us he'd seen a masked man hiding behind trees, waving little kids over. He only stopped when the man threatened to call the cops. We never saw him again. But that same year, local news reported a man arrested for stalking kids on Halloween, found with chloroform and duct tape in his trunk. He was wearing the same kind of mask. I was 11 years old that Halloween. My best friend Casey and I were walking home after trick-or-treating, our bags full of candy, our costumes half torn. To get home, we had to cross a small wooden bridge over a shallow river. Everyone called it Jack Winkle River. Halfway across, headlights appeared on the other side. A black Jeep rolled up and stopped, blocking the bridge. We froze. The driver's window rolled down, and a man's raspy smoker's voice called out, "Hey, kids! Come here! I need help!" We didn't move. He shouted again, louder, angrier. We turned and ran back the way we came. The Jeep couldn't follow us over the bridge, but it drove down the road to meet us on the other side. As we reached the corner, another car, a dark SUV, came speeding toward us. It screeched to a stop just a few feet away. 3 men inside. One in the back seat, old gray hair, thick mustache, same smoker's voice. He said, "We've got free candy for you. Get in." Every horror story we'd ever heard suddenly became real. The Jeep spun around and came right at us. Both passenger doors opened. 2 men stepped out. We dropped our candy and sprinted toward my house. I could hear their footsteps, heavy and uneven, getting closer. When my house came into view, we screamed for my mom, slamming the doorbell like maniacs. The Jeep stopped at the end of the driveway. The men stood in the headlights, staring, before turning back. My mom yanked us inside, locked the door, and called the police. An unmarked police car sat outside for hours that night. We didn't sleep, but around 3 in the morning, flashing red and blue lights filled my room. My dad ran outside. They'd pulled over a black Jeep and an SUV a few blocks away, with 3 men inside, the same 3 who tried to take us. Halloween night, years later. I took my 7-year-old daughter, Jamie, trick-or-treating around our neighborhood. When we got home, I made her dinner, we watched TV, and then I sent her to bed. Not even an hour later, she came into my room whispering, "Daddy, there's someone in my closet." I smiled, half asleep. "There's no one there, sweetheart. Go back to bed." She didn't move. I heard them moving. I sighed, walked her back, turned on the lights, and opened the closet. Empty. See? Nothing. She nodded, still uneasy. I tucked her in and went back to bed. 5 minutes later, she was back. "Daddy," I heard it again. This time I took her seriously. We went together, quiet, lights off. "Is anybody in there?" I joked. Then came a soft thud. Something, or someone, was in there. I told Jamie to run to the neighbors and call the police. When she bolted, I yanked the door open. Sitting on her toy box was the neighbor's teenage son, Randy. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the closet, furious. He stammered, trying to explain. I shoved him straight to his father's door, where Jamie was crying. His dad slapped him hard across the face, then asked me to come inside. Apparently, Randy had broken in while we were trick-or-treating, through an open window, and hid in Jamie's closet with his friend Daryl. "Is Daryl still in my house?" I asked. Randy nodded. I ran back home, and there he was, this greasy, creepy kid crouched by the closet, holding my daughter's underwear. I lost it. I grabbed him by the throat, threw him to the ground and hit him until he begged to leave. I didn't call the cops because of my friendship with his father. But the next morning, I found a small drill hole in Jamie's closet door. They had been watching her sleep. Even now, I regret not calling the police. Because monsters don't always wear masks. It was 11:30 on Halloween night when my family finished unpacking boxes in our new house in Mississauga, Ontario. Everyone was exhausted, ready for bed. I went upstairs to my room. The air was cold, too cold for how warm the house had been earlier. As I lay down, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy. "Knock it off," I yelled, thinking it was one of my sisters. No answer. When I looked, the hallway was empty. I went downstairs. Everyone was still in the basement unpacking. No one had been upstairs. Trying to ignore it, I went back to bed. But around 12:30, a loud banging started from my parents' bedroom. I froze. It stopped when I stepped into the hall, then started again, louder this time. My heart was racing. Then my bedroom door creaked open. "Who's there?" I whispered. No reply. Light footsteps approached my bed. I turned my head and saw a tall, dark figure looming over me, at least 7 feet tall. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. It leaned closer and whispered, "Boo." I screamed until my parents rushed in and flipped the lights on. The figure was gone. They swore they never heard any banging, no footsteps, nothing. But I know what I saw. You can't imagine something that real. A few years ago, me and my friends decided to go to this big Halloween haunted house attraction called Scare House Journey to the Basement. It wasn't one of those guided tours. You had to find your own way out, like a maze. And the only exit could be unlocked using a key hidden in the basement. It sounded fun, until it wasn't. The house looked authentic. Blood-stained floors, dusty furniture, old coffins. Each room had creepy props, fake cobwebs, and actors jumping out at every turn. We laughed, screamed, got lost, but eventually, we found the basement door. When we opened it, it was pitch black. No light at all. Phones weren't allowed, so we had nothing to see with. We stepped down anyway, one creaky step at a time. Halfway down, I bumped into someone. "Sorry," I said. No response. Then, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I screamed and ran back up, my friends laughing nervously behind me, but I wasn't laughing. One of them found a key sitting on an old desk, and we bolted back upstairs to the exit door. Outside, there was a box labeled "Drop keys here, please." We tossed it in, took a breath, and started walking away. Then the door creaked open behind us. A tall figure stepped out, dressed in a black robe, wearing a bloodied pig mask. At first we thought it was an actor, but when we crossed the parking lot, he followed. We stopped. So did he. We ran. He ran. He followed us for 5 blocks, all the way to my friend Eddie's house. Eddie shouted for his dad to grab his gun. That made the masked man freeze. When Eddie's dad came outside with the weapon, the man raised his hands and said, "Don't shoot. I'm only 27. He ran off into the night. When we called the haunted house the next day, they told us something that made our blood run cold. They didn't have any staff wearing a pig mask.